Is something huge happening in 2025? Factories are quietly leaving the US for Canada. Here's why. Have you noticed something massive happening in 2025, yet it's barely on the radar? America's once mighty factories are quietly packing up and heading to a surprising new destination, Canada. But why are they leaving? As labor costs in the US skyrocket and industrial stability crumbles, Canada has become the go-to haven, offering tax breaks, a stable economy, and a highly skilled workforce. Is this just a temporary move? Or are we witnessing the beginning of a major shift in the global manufacturing landscape? In this video, we'll uncover the 10 US states most affected by the factory exodus to Canada. Which state is bearing the brunt of this change? Stay tuned as we explore the surprising truth. Number 10. Pennsylvania. Once the heart of US industry, now facing an economic exodus, Pennsylvania, a state that was once a proud symbol of American manufacturing, is now grappling with a serious recession. From Pittsburgh to Allentown, factories that used to produce the precision components at the core of US industry are quietly closing and relocating, most notably to Canada. A glaring example, a robotics parts manufacturer in Erie that shut down its plant in March, only to open a new facility near Toronto just 2 months later. So why the move north? It's all about Canada's attractive tax policies, streamlined permitting, and strong government subsidies for green manufacturing. In stark contrast, Pennsylvania's burdensome bureaucracy and sky-high compliance costs are suffocating small and medium businesses, making survival nearly impossible. In the first half of 2025 alone, 7,000 manufacturing jobs have been lost in the state, with a significant portion now relocated to Canada. But this isn't just about factory closures. It's about lost innovation. Once thriving hubs of technology and research are now shifting to Canada, driven by strong incentives for electric vehicle manufacturing and AI hardware. Even industrial towns like Scranton and Reading are feeling the effects of this seismic shift. But the real tragedy isn't in the numbers. It's in the faces of 3 generations of factory workers standing in front of locked gates, realizing their once promised future is slipping away. The dream they worked for is no longer being built in Pennsylvania, but rather across the border in a land that's becoming more attractive thanks to a flood of investments. President Trump once vowed to bring jobs back to America, but as the manufacturing sector fades away due to domestic policies, will those promises ever be realized? What do you think? Have US policy decisions truly helped the manufacturing sector, or are they pushing jobs and innovation out of the country? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Wisconsin. From dairy capital to manufacturing crisis. Is Canada stealing America's jobs? When you think of Wisconsin, you probably picture dairy farms and cheese. But the state's true economic backbone has always been manufacturing. From heavy machinery to automotive parts, Wisconsin has long been a key player in America's industrial belt. However, in early 2025, the state was rocked by a shocking blow. Several electric vehicle part suppliers decided to move their entire operations across the border to Ontario and Quebec. One major example, a Milwaukee-based company specializing in electric drive modules moved its production to Windsor, Canada. Why? The answer is simple: lower electricity costs and Canada's generous clean energy incentives. Longtime manufacturing hubs like Green Bay and Racine, once the heart of the Midwest supply chain, are now seeing their industries restructure, with new supply routes running through Canada. The results are already clear. In the first quarter of 2025, Wisconsin reported a 2% drop in manufacturing jobs, the sharpest decline in the Midwest. Meanwhile, Ontario's industrial parks are thriving, with booming factories and new orders, many of which used to be Wisconsin's. Local communities are now raising alarms. If federal intervention doesn't come soon, Wisconsin could become a transit point in the North American supply chain, where goods pass through the state, but the true value flows north to Canada. This shift not only threatens Wisconsin's local economy, but also forces us to ask, is American manufacturing losing its competitive edge? Will Washington take the steps necessary to reverse this trend? What policies are needed to keep key industries in the US instead of losing them to Canada? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more updates on the evolving economic landscape in America. Number 8. Illinois, from Midwest powerhouse to manufacturing crisis. Why are jobs heading to Canada? Illinois, once a shining beacon of Midwestern industrial power, is now facing a quiet crisis that's slipping under the radar. In the first half of 2025 alone, 9,000 manufacturing jobs have vanished. But what's even more shocking is that these jobs aren't going to Asia. They're moving straight to Canada. A major machinery manufacturer in Rockford recently announced that it would relocate its entire factory to Ontario. The reason behind this? Simple: lower corporate taxes, quicker permitting, and much more attractive green manufacturing incentives in Canada. And this isn't just happening with big corporations. Packaging and bottling companies in the suburbs of Chicago are also downsizing and shifting their operations north. Even Illinois' legendary food processing industry is feeling the heat. A well-known frozen food brand, which has been a staple in Peoria for over 40 years, just opened a new facility in Nova Scotia, creating 500 new jobs in Canada. As Illinois loses these critical jobs, it's facing the harsh reality. It can no longer compete in the North American manufacturing arena. But this issue isn't just about economic reports or job numbers. The real pain is felt in small towns where 3 generations of families worked in the same factories, now staring at empty gates as production moves across the border. Illinois isn't just losing jobs. It's losing its bargaining power in the highly competitive world of North American manufacturing. The Trump administration has stressed that tax and regulatory reforms are needed for U.S. states to stay competitive. But the question remains, will the federal government take action to level the playing field, or will Illinois continue to see its industrial heartland slip away to Canada? 7. California, from tech hub to manufacturing exodus. Why are jobs fleeing to Canada? California, once the global symbol of technological innovation, home to the iconic Silicon Valley, is quietly losing its manufacturing heart. In 2022 alone, the state saw several major manufacturing companies pack up and move their operations to Canada, and now rumors are swirling about which companies will be next. One major example: a startup producing electric vehicle batteries in San Jose recently moved its entire operation to Quebec. The reason? Lower energy costs and more relaxed environmental regulations in Canada. Meanwhile, California's sky-high labor costs and increasingly tough regulations are making it harder for businesses to survive. Did you know that electricity prices in California are nearly double those in many parts of Canada? This has forced companies to make the tough call to leave. In Southern California, aerospace suppliers in Orange County are relocating production to Alberta and Manitoba, while mid-sized tech companies in Fresno and Bakersfield are eyeing Canada for its sustainable manufacturing incentives. In total, California lost more than 12,000 manufacturing jobs in the first half of 2025 alone. But the real sting? These weren't just any jobs. High-skill, high-wage positions that once supported entire communities are vanishing. The ripple effect is already hitting. Local suppliers are seeing a drop in revenue. Logistics companies are receiving fewer orders, and even vocational schools are experiencing fewer students. Despite being the largest economy in the U.S., California is now facing the slow erosion of its most competitive advantage: high-tech manufacturing. 6. Georgia, from manufacturing boom to quiet exodus. Why are companies moving to Canada? Georgia, once a rising star on the U.S. manufacturing map, built its reputation with Atlanta as a bustling logistics hub, Savannah as a crucial export gateway, and technology factories sprouting up across its suburbs. It seemed like Georgia had cracked the code for economic growth. However, by 2025, that picture began to shift dramatically. From electric vehicle battery factories to aerospace parts and even food processing, an increasing number of companies in Georgia are scaling back or shutting down entirely. But the reason for their shift to Canada isn't just about cost savings, it's about a strategic relocation. By early 2025, Georgia had lost over 8,000 manufacturing jobs, with nearly half of those moving to Ontario and British Columbia. One key example is a major electric vehicle manufacturer that had planned a massive facility near Savannah, but unexpectedly halted the project and signed a new deal in Canada. Why Canada? The answer lies in clean energy subsidies, a quick permitting process, and a business-friendly environment that Georgia can no longer compete with. Logistics centers around Augusta have also seen a sharp decline in shipping volumes, as U.S.-Canada trade routes are shifting northward, altering the flow of critical supply chains. But it's not just about cost, it's about long-term vision. Company leaders are now prioritizing policy stability, innovation support, and workforce training, areas where Canada clearly leads. Georgia isn't just losing jobs, it's losing momentum. Communities once thriving on manufacturing are now facing budget shortages for schools, a cooling housing market, and a mass exodus of young people seeking opportunities elsewhere. While Georgia's growth story isn't over, it's certainly being rewritten as Canadian policies and investments take the lead. Number 5. Ohio. From manufacturing powerhouse to quiet exodus. Why are factories moving to Canada? Ohio, once a symbol of resilience in the heart of American industry, has undergone a painful transformation. Known for steel, rubber, and iconic American car manufacturing, Ohio was once the birthplace of industrial strength. But by 2025, Ohio's manufacturing momentum began to significantly decline. Not because of declining demand, but because demand has quietly shifted north. As companies seek a more business-friendly environment in Canada. By June 2025, 10,000 manufacturing jobs had disappeared from Ohio without a single protest. The factories didn't close, they moved, relocated to Ontario and Quebec. One of the most shocking moves came from a Cleveland-based auto parts supplier that decided to shift its entire operation to Quebec. The reason? Clean energy incentives, government-backed infrastructure, and a far more business-friendly environment in Canada. In Akron, a plastics manufacturer shut down 2 plants and partnered with a Canadian company. The CEO bluntly stated, "We can't survive here anymore." For Ohio, this is more than just an economic loss. It's the loss of identity for a state that prided itself on its industrial heritage. Every factory that leaves Ohio takes with it a piece of its future in North American manufacturing. Small towns like Lima and Mansfield are already feeling the effects of this shift. When a factory closes, it's not just that factory, it's the entire supply chain that disappears. Transportation companies close down, gas stations go desolate, trade schools see fewer students, even local diners and daycares are struggling. This is a heartbreaking reality. Canada isn't just stealing jobs, it's competing and winning. Ohio, despite its proud industrial legacy, is now stuck on the sidelines, watching an industry that once defined it transform without any chance to catch up. 4. New York, from financial hub to manufacturing loss. Why are jobs fleeing to Canada? When most people think of New York, they picture Wall Street and the bright lights of Broadway. But beneath this glamorous facade, the state has quietly been home to a robust manufacturing network, spanning from electronics and processed foods to green technology. However, that manufacturing base is now shrinking. Over the past year, more than 10,000 manufacturing jobs have disappeared, with cities like Buffalo, Rochester, and Syracuse feeling the impact the most. A growing number of electronics companies, processed food manufacturers, and green energy startups are relocating to Canada. One of the most shocking moves was a solar panel manufacturer in Albany that decided to move its entire production to Ontario, drawn by generous R&D incentives and easier access to the European market. Once a thriving industrial corridor, Western New York is now a mere shadow of its former self. While state authorities remain focused on finance and real estate, the manufacturing sector continues to decline, largely unnoticed. High corporate taxes, crumbling infrastructure, and expensive energy costs are forcing companies to reconsider their futures, with many opting to relocate to Canada. Even iconic food brands aren't immune to this shift. A well-known soup and sauce manufacturer recently moved a third of its operations from northern New York to Montreal, resulting in the loss of hundreds of union jobs. For communities already struggling with store closures and population decline, the collapse of the manufacturing sector is a devastating blow. This loss didn't come with much fanfare, but the damage is undeniable. Job opportunities, economic stability, and the future growth of the region seem to be slipping away from New York's horizon, as Canada steadily takes the lead. Number 3. Texas. From industrial powerhouse to quiet exodus. Why are manufacturing jobs moving north? Texas, long proud of its Lone Star reputation as a self-sufficient industrial powerhouse, has been home to everything from oil and gas to industrial equipment. It was once the epitome of American industrial strength. But by 2025, even Texas couldn't escape the silent shift north. Key industries, including auto parts, electronics, and industrial machinery, are facing sharp declines, partly due to evolving economic pressures and changing policies. In less than 12 months, over 9,200 manufacturing jobs have disappeared, marking a turning point in Texas's industrial economy. A prime example, a robotics company based in Dallas, once a symbol of Texas innovation, recently broke ground on a new facility in Toronto. The reason for the move is clear: tax incentives for skilled immigrant labor, a strategic location near Canadian and European markets, and Canada's stable political environment. Meanwhile, border cities like Laredo and El Paso are feeling the pressure, with export volumes dropping as the supply chain shifts north. This shift underscores the growing divide between Texas and Canada. Texas faces critical challenges: an unstable power grid, soaring property insurance costs, and other risk factors that make long-term investment uncertain. Meanwhile, Canada offers a more favorable manufacturing environment. Faster approval processes, clear climate strategies, and political stability that attract companies looking for consistency. What's truly alarming to local leaders is that jobs are disappearing quietly, with no signs of recovery. The entire supply chain, once the backbone of Texas's economy, is being restructured and relocated. Texas is no longer the industrial titan it once was. If the state fails to adapt to these changing trends, it risks losing its long-standing identity as an industrial hub and may find itself facing a new future as the industries it once built slowly fade away. 2. Indiana. From manufacturing stronghold to quiet decline. Why are jobs moving to Canada? Indiana, though often overshadowed by its neighboring state Michigan, has long been a silent powerhouse in the manufacturing industry. Known for having the highest industrial labor rate in the country, Indiana has specialized in producing auto parts, heavy machinery, and electronic components, contributing significantly to the U.S. economy. But by 2025, the state's manufacturing dominance began to slowly erode. In the past 12 months, Indiana has lost over 11,500 manufacturing jobs, mainly from auto parts suppliers in Fort Wayne and Evansville. The twist? These companies didn't shut down. They shifted their operations to Ontario and Quebec. A prime example, a truck chassis manufacturer, once a key partner for the major Detroit automakers, announced it would cut production in Indiana by 70%, while doubling its investment in Windsor, Canada. The move isn't just about tax incentives. It's also about the $100 million in subsidies from the Canadian government, including labor support, infrastructure upgrades, and logistics improvements. Canada is also offering affordable clean energy, something Indiana simply can't match. The situation is growing increasingly dire in smaller towns like Cuco and Lafayette. Empty parking lots, coffee shops closing early, and residents grappling with the tough question: should they move to Ontario in search of better opportunities? One of the core reasons Indiana can't maintain its growth is its failing technical training system. Once hailed as a model, this system now lacks the skills needed for green manufacturing and modern automation, leaving Indiana far behind Canada in innovation. Indiana's decline isn't due to a lack of determination. It's because it failed to adapt to the rapidly changing global manufacturing landscape. Canada's strong policies, modern infrastructure, and forward-thinking vision have given it the upper hand. As a result, Indiana faces a harsh truth. It is no longer the shining example of manufacturing success it once was. and the opportunities it once offered are slipping away. 1. Michigan, from the heart of American automotive to quiet decline. Is Canada stealing jobs? When you think of the birthplace of the American automotive industry, you can't ignore Michigan. Known as the Motor City, Detroit is where the first cars were built and where titans like General Motors and Chrysler once dominated the industry, creating millions of jobs. This is where Henry Ford revolutionized the automotive world and laid the foundation for a global empire. But by 2025, Michigan isn't facing a dramatic collapse like 2008. It's witnessing the quiet withdrawal of factories, the closing of assembly lines, and the disappearance of thousands of jobs without anyone to replace them. In just 18 months, Michigan has lost over 15,000 jobs in the automotive and supporting industries, the highest number since the 2009 recession. What's different this time? Companies aren't just downsizing, they're moving operations entirely to Canada. This isn't due to a lack of skilled workers. In fact, Michigan's workforce remains one of the best, but because of rising operating costs, complicated environmental regulations, and a lack of long-term policies to support the transition to electric vehicles. While Michigan struggles with these issues, Canada is offering an ideal environment for auto companies. The Ontario government provides generous green transition programs, clean energy subsidies, tax cuts, and low-interest loans to build battery factories. Major players like Stellantis, Magna, and suppliers to Tesla are investing heavily in Ontario, where training programs and flexible industrial policies are tailored to the auto industry's needs. Despite Michigan's efforts to implement federal policies to retain manufacturing, it's clear that production costs are rising, and the supply chain is now shifting north-south, rather than the traditional east-west. Flint, once a booming truck manufacturing hub, now stands as a ghost town with empty parking lots and overgrown weeds. Families that once depended on the auto industry are now facing unemployment or being forced into temporary jobs, with many leaving the state for better opportunities. Michigan, the once thriving heart of American automotive, is now facing a monumental shift in its industrial identity. The question remains, can Michigan reclaim its dominance, or will it continue to fall behind as jobs and opportunities move north to Canada? What do you think about these changes? Share your thoughts in the comments below. This is a conversation where every perspective matters. If you want to keep up with these major shifts, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss an update.